and now Rushmore, director Wes Anderson has already established himself as a rambunctious and idiosyncratic voice. That he's managed that under studio patronage is all the more remarkable. So tonight, we'll find out just how he gets it done on Independent Focus.
This is kind of different from the stuff I normally see at the moment.
You're stuck with one interpretation.
Hollywood loves these guns, and it's all like
because if the film doesn't hit, then you're really screwed.
Certain movies kind of unnerve me a little more than others. They just didn't have anything to say at that time.
I sold just about everything I own.
It's like I write the script, I rehearse the actor.
The big difference that more money gives you is just more
Talk is very cheap to shoot.
Sit up here and pontificate about filmmaking.
not to have studios telling me what to do.
What seat do you want? Thank you.
These two movies, between Rushmore and Bottle Rocket, there's so much about this weird combination of ambition and ingenuousness. Where does that come from?
In both of those movies, the main character has really high aspirations. They've got all these projects they're trying to kind of get going. And Rushmore especially, I think, is, he has the grandest ambitions that we could think of. So, and that's just something, that's just sort of a subject that appeals to me and my co-writer, Owen Wilson.
But neither one can do ordinary things well, you know what I mean? I mean, they can't deal with the world, but they have all these odd things that they want to do that are outside of mundane stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, that's the answer I was looking for. In the short that's Bottle Rocket, though, there's a kind of an interesting, almost self-conscious quality that when you made the movie, you basically kind of threw a lot of that out and remade it.
Yeah, well, that was before we really knew how to do it, kind of, so I think it was self-conscious. I mean, I think it was unintentionally self-conscious in the short. The short version of Bottle Rocket?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't watch that fondly. Somebody was watching it in my house the other day in the other room, and I could hear it, and I was just cringing, and I made them turn it off and just listen to it with headphones. So I don't really...
What is it that you don't like about it now? I mean, what bothers you?
Just a lot of mistakes. And you can sort of see all the seams, and I think the guys the actors are better, and I think they learned to be better actors, and then I had a lot of things to figure out between making that short and making the real movie.
It's interesting because there's certainly a big leap in filmmaking confidence between that short and the movie.
Yeah, well, it was a couple of years. And also, between the time that we made our short and we made the feature, we spent, all our time preparing. We kind of rehearsed it continually. We had like a 2-year workshop to prepare for it. And then also, we worked on the script a lot with Jim Brooks and Polly Platt, and just all that time, that was like our film school, kind of, I think.
Did Jim Brooks do that thing of making you do draft after draft after draft after draft?
Yeah, he made us return to the material over and over.
And how does that help you, or does it?
I think the movie itself, the finished movie, has their script problems that we never solved, kind of.
Such as?
Well, it's not really. It's not one story. It's sort of episodic, which is sort of meant to be, but we wrote it without knowing how do you make 90 minutes work, So even after we shot the movie, we went back and we wrote a new opening scene, and we wrote some additional stuff and kind of reworked it and did a ton of work in the editing room. I mean, we spent a year cutting it. There was just a lot of stuff that we didn't know, and there were basic script problems. And when we tried to address them, it was sort of inherent in our original script. The problems were sort of built into it, and they were almost unsolvable. And I think we made progress working with Brooks. But Rushmore, we wrote the script much more quickly, and when we cut the movie, we didn't drop a single scene or anything. It's just the movie is the script, which is just completely not the case with Bottle Rocket.
Now, how did you and Owen get to work together? How'd that happen? You met when you were very young, right?
Yeah, I guess we met about 10 years ago in school, and we met in this playwriting class, and then there was a play that I did that Owen acted in, and then just we quickly just became friends and kind of realized we were looking at things in sort of similar ways, and we were interested in the same kind of movies and books and things like that, and we were writing short stories. We sort of helped each other with our stories, and then we started writing Bottle Rocket.
And how many drafts did you go through with Rushmore before you got the picture in the shape it's in now?
I don't know. It's because we don't do drafts. We sort of do little bits at a time. So I mean, if you really broke into drafts, there's probably 100. But because every time we make one little punctuation fix, I say we scrap all the old ones. They're all wrong. We want new drafts. So I don't know. It's kind of a continuing process.
So you're basically always working on it, kind of shaping it.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting too because by getting somebody like James Brooks, yet the movie still feels like it's very much in your voice. I mean, and it must be a Bottle Rocket, right?
Yeah, I think that's what Brooks responded to, was that Owen and I had something that he thought was different, and that was sort of, that was the thing that turned him on to it, I think. I mean, he uses the word voice. That's his thing, is to find a new voice. And he thought that there was something with us, so his goal was to help to make it work and still preserve the thing that he was responding to.
How'd you guys end up getting in contact with him? How did he get the material?
What happened was there's a guy in Texas who we knew named Kit Carson. And Kit helped us get our short kind of done, and he helped it go to Sundance. He's the one who first told us about Sundance in the first place, and because we didn't know anything about Sundance. And he's the one who, he gave it to a producer, Barbara Boyle, and she and her partner, Michael Taylor, gave it to Polly Platt, and Polly Platt showed it to Jim Brooks, and that was the way it got over to Gracie Films. Is the way we got the money. We were trying to raise, originally we wanted like $40,000. Then when Kit Carson got involved, it was going to be $400,000. And then when Brooks got involved, it became like $6 million. But we could never get to $40,000. That was the thing. So.
Sounds like you were better off without it. It's interesting because as a movie, you talk about being episodic, but it feels like each episode kind of advances the characters. I mean, especially Dignan with his sort of weird ambition that gets sort of like more pettier and pettier with each section of the picture.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they say it's character-driven, so maybe that's what that is.
And you're sneering a little bit at character-driven. What?
I mean, we tried to, we were trying to bring it together as much as we could with it, and it was the reason we wrote the thing was because of the characters. Like, there's the crime movie aspect of it, which is something we, thought was fun, but it wasn't really the heart of the movie. It's not like about real criminals, It's about like some guys that we know, kind of, more like. So, that's the main thing was the characters and the friendships of the characters and that kind of stuff.
But there's also these weird sort of family dynamics that run through your movies too.
Yeah, and well, in Bottle Rocket, the big there's one of the family things, the dynamic between Bob and his older brother, Future Man, who terrorizes them. I think Bob and Future Man are here tonight, actually. I think the center of Rushmore's relationship between Max and Seymour Cassell, who plays his father, the barber, that's sort of like the key events in the movie to me are kind of around that relationship. Like the big moment to me in the movie is when he introduces Bill Murray to his father and shows his father's a barber and finally acknowledges him, I think.
But he's almost kind of a distant father. I mean, so it seems like, in that space is where Herman Bloom comes in. Who's kind of like both a father and an older brother, and he sees a lot of Max in himself. Yeah,
our key thing for the relationship between Max and Bill Murray's character was that there would be this big age difference, but that they would be equals. Because Max approaches him as an equal. He admires him at first, but he deals with him originally as a sort of source of funding, kind of. That's like his original entree to him. And I think what ends up happening is Bill Murray sort of begins to look up to Max a little more than Max looks up to him. And then the little kid, Dirk, is sort of the one who's the most mature of all of them, I think. He's kind of the conscience.
I mean, there's certainly allusions to Peanuts in this.
I had him look at the Charlie Brown Christmas special and told him that he was supposed to be Linus. But one of the things we liked about that is that that cartoon sort of is its own world. Like the parents are like the TV specials. The parents or the teachers are always, they're never seen above the neck. They don't have faces, you know. Occasionally they'll appear, but they're cut off and they make that noise, you know.
Wah, 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 wah.
Kind of like that, yeah. And so I sort of like the way that's its own. It's, you know, they make their own little kind of surreal world. And we sort of tried to do that with both of these movies because the characters, their behavior is sort of odd, and it doesn't really, there's things that Max does that you could say, if it was a documentary, you know, if it was presented as a sort of documentary, you would say, well, he'd never get away with that, that's impossible, they'd never let him do that. But we tried to sort of make a world where it's logical for these things to happen, kind of, and that's kind of ties into that Charlie Brown stuff.
Well, there obviously had to be a big difference in terms of making this movie. You must have had a lot more resources and a lot more freedom, and having a major movie star along didn't hurt much either, did it?
The budget was not radically different between the two movies, but the kind of feeling on the set was very different. I mean, one thing was with Bottle Rocket, it was a bunch of people who, we were all friends at the beginning. And with Rushmore, you know...
At the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. With Rushmore, it was like a normal movie where you cast it and they don't know each other yet, and you have to sort of bring everyone together, which I was nervous about because I never cast a movie. We wrote for who was going to be in it, but the way the cast kind of came together was very nice because each person we brought in sort of, like Bill Murray when he comes to do the movie, you know, when he came to Texas, he was just by himself. There was nobody with him. And at first I was like, whoa, somebody's got to take care of this guy. Isn't somebody going to drive him around or do, you know, isn't there somebody to handle him? And I was a little nervous. But then you kind of realize he can take care of himself. He's fine, you know. I mean, actually, more than anybody else, he kind of attracts attention like no other movie star that I've ever been around, because everybody knows him, and everybody feels like kind of close to him. So people come up to him all the time, but he can always think of the right thing to say. I mean, he'll always say something funny. He can handle any situation. He's big, which is good. And then he can like turn on a little intimidation if he wants to. So he can sort of deal with any situation.
And was that a lot different from working with James Caan?
Not really.
But the search for Max was pretty arduous too, wasn't it?
Yeah, we spent about a year trying to find somebody to play that part. And we saw maybe 1,800. That's the number that we throw around, is 1,800.
Is that true?
Maybe. I don't know. That's like our press number, you know.
Just stop counting after a while.
Yeah. Well, somebody theoretically counted 1,800. I don't know. At one point, we had spent so long searching that Owen and I came up with this idea where maybe there was no American that could play the part. So we decided we would have an English kid, and that he would have an English accent, but that it would be a fake English accent. But it would actually be a real English accent, but the audience wouldn't know that. And that was like our level of desperation. And then we got Schwartzman. So Schwartzman lived like, 3 blocks away from our casting office. So
And when he walked in, did you just know that? Because I guess he came in with a blazer with a patch he'd made for himself or something like that.
Yeah, he had a patch. He tells it like he walked into the room. He was wearing a blazer, and he thought he was like going to make an impact because he was wearing a blazer. He walked in the room, and everyone had a blazer on it. But then he said he sensed everyone see the patch on his blazer, and he felt like they all kind of went, damn.
That sounds like Max.
That's him.
Now, did you end up having to change it much for him at all, as you got to know him as an actor?
We didn't change the lines, but the way I always thought of the character, the way Owen and I thought of it was 15-year-old Mick Jagger. That was like the physical type that we wanted. And he's more like 15-year-old Dustin Hoffman, kind of. But after he wasn't what I was looking for, really. But after 45 seconds with him doing a scene, I was kind of exchanging little looks with the casting director, and we were kind of sitting on the edges of our seats, and we felt like this is a whole new thing. And I realized at that point that we weren't looking for, you know, a type. We were looking for a 15-year-old that we'd never seen before, who had the right kind of, somebody described it about him as intellectual ferocity, and that we needed a kid who could carry a whole movie, and that was really the main thing. Is that
how much of you is this sort of weird combination of ambition and underachiever?
How much of
that Max is? How much of that's you?
You know, that character is like much more sort of outspoken and confident, and just has a drive, and smarter too, I think, than I was.
Clearly, there's some similarities to The Graduate here too, in that way.
Yeah, I think the first half of it is Cheever, and the second half is The Graduate, kind of, I think. But once we cast Jason Schwartzman, I felt like there was a Graduate thing too, because he sort of just reminds me of Benjamin Braddock. Now,
you've made two movies that are really pretty idiosyncratic in what people think was being kind of studio patronage. I mean, Columbia and Jim Brooks with Bottle Rocket, and now Touchstone with Rushmore. Do you think of yourself as being kind of an independent filmmaker, or do you have that kind of categorization for yourself, or what?
Well, I mean, definitely if I was going to think of myself as one or the other, I would think of myself as independent, because, you know, we just want to do our own. I want to direct the scripts that Owen and I write together, and I want to cast the people I want to cast, and just, you know, we want to do them our way.
You must have gotten offers from other sort of independent type companies. I wonder how someone like you ends up at a studio instead of someplace else, but obviously they let you make the movies you want to make there.
Yeah, we were in turnaround someplace else, and we needed, you know, we were trying to find who was going to, because we couldn't come to terms on a budget. And so we needed somebody who was going to, you know, we were trying to find who wants to do it for the money we want to do it for. You know, we ended up with a few places to choose from, and then Roth was just clearly the guy he runs the company, and if the guy who runs the company is behind you, then that's it. It's sort of set.
Now tell me about these movies, about Rushmore going to the festival circuit and the response that you got when you played Telluride in Toronto.
Bottle Rocket got rejected from everything but Rotterdam, and we couldn't get the money to go to Rotterdam, so it just played by itself there. So when we started screening Rushmore at festivals, those were our first festival screenings of anything since our short. Our short had been in Sundance, but and our short played to total silence at Sundance, so that was like a bad experience, festival screening. So when the first screening I went to was in Toronto, and it was just incredible to see it with an appreciative audience. You know, Bottle Rocket, we'd done all these test screenings, which the audiences were not appreciative. You know, we actually had the first test screening we had 87 walkouts, and during it I couldn't take it at a certain point, and I went out to get some air, and I watched them just check me off as I went by, and I said, I'm coming back. But yeah, the festivals were great. New York Film Festival was really fun. Telluride was the first one that it played at, maybe the most fun one was New York.
Because?
Just because you're in New York, it's great to be in New York, and you know, and I've gone to that festival a lot, so it's one that I always kind of aspired to be a part of.
So it must have been really gratifying to have it play at this festival you've gone to a lot.
Yeah, and afterwards, you know, you're in New York still, you know, you can go out to have a drink, and it's, you know, you go to dinner. It's just it's a great night. You know?
Okay. Let's see if we can take a few questions from the audience now. Get the house lights up.
I just wanted to ask you a question about Bottle Rocket. I got such a kick out of it, and I found that they were way the stupidest crooks I'd ever seen in any movie ever. It was really like they were kids playing cops and robbers, and I'm wondering if you did that consciously or not.
Yeah, I think, you know, more or less. You know, the crime stuff in it is just it's just we need to put them through their paces to do something, so we ended up coming up with crime. It's like a standard movie thing, and it's really more like there's a big robbery they do at the end of the movie, and it's really just an opportunity to choreograph them running around and throwing smoke bombs and stuff like that. You know. So I think that's, you know, basically accurate. There's a bunch of people from the movie that are here. And can I just bring everybody up?
Sure, come
it's
on.
like a dozen
There's plenty
people.
of room up here.
It's a dozen people. Barry Mendel, our producer, is here. Yeah. Robert Yeoman, our director of photography. David Wasco and Sandy Wasco, our production designer and set decorator. Karen Patch, our costume designer. David Moritz, our editor. I think the only other person is Jason Schwartzman, who played Max.
I was wondering, what did you feel was the most difficult scene to write? Whether it was the most number of rewrites or maybe one that just stumped you as you were going through the script?
Yeah, hard scene to write was the scene where the teacher kind of confronts Max, and she kind of, all this, she says the thing about fingering me and that kind of stuff. It was like stuff that was hard. We didn't really want to write that scene, and then we didn't really want to shoot that scene, and then usually in the screening I usually leave during that scene because it makes me very uncomfortable. So that was the toughest.
Bill Murray paid you a great compliment on Charlie Rose, saying that you had all the moves, and he was speaking specifically about an instance where he said, "Okay, what's the next shot?" And you said, "This is my Barry Lyndon shot." Can you speak a little bit to how you were influenced by Kubrick? And also, to what degree, since you love Mike Nichols, does improvisation work into your filmmaking?
Yeah, well, normally a lot, and in this case, not much at all, with improvisation. Because with this movie, we tried, Jason and I did a lot of stuff kind of preparing for the movie with improvising things. But once we got to shooting it, and also with Murray, we did some kind of, when we practiced some things with improvising, but once we got to shooting it, we always just, the script was always what worked the best. Then the Barry Lyndon thing was just, that was just like a specific thing we ripped off from Barry Lyndon. It was just like, stolen. But I think, one of the big influences, the way we shoot the stuff, is Polanski. That's really the guy. That's,
Movies besides Chinatown?
Chinatown, but also Rosemary's Baby. There's ways that he shoots kind of every insert is sort of shot in the exact right way. And he does it, like he'll do a master, but when he goes to the close-up, he uses the same lens, so there's not this sort of compression.
Yeah.
Compression.
Wes Anderson, this is your life.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Let's thank Wes Anderson.
Thanks. Can we walk off here? Thanks very much, Elvis.